Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. Do you all remember last year when Donald Trump said that undocumented immigrants were taking black jobs? Do you remember that? He said that undocumented immigrants were taking black jobs. I'm sure you remember it. That was white supremacy. Dividing and conquering. It was pitting two people against each other. African American people and Latino American people. That was white supremacy pitting two people at odds with each other based on a fallacy. And I'm going to show you that the statement is not true. All right, so let's get into this because the aim and goal, the objective of this video is to say that our enemy is white supremacy, not immigrants. Our enemy is white supremacy, not immigrants. That's what I want to talk to you about now. So let's go to a saying by a gentleman who passed a few months ago, actually. His name is Neely Fuller, Jr. And he said, if you do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Now, I'm going to tell you something. There are no truer words than those that Mr. Fuller spoke. He says, if you do not understand white supremacy and what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. So if you don't know how white supremacy works, if you don't know what it is, what you do know will cause you a great deal of confusion. And so a statement like undocumented immigrants are taking black jobs without an understanding of white supremacy, what you think you know about African American and Latino American relationship will cause you a great deal of confusion. Okay? Now, here's how I want to approach this. The first thing I want to do is to define the zero-sum framework or thinking that so many folks apply to the immigration debate, if you will. The zero-sum thinking that many in the space of immigration and how, again, undocumented immigrants affect the African American community, they apply something they may not even know that they are applying it. But it's commonly called zero-sum thinking. And essentially what it means is that in order for one group to gain, another group has to lose. In order for Group A to gain, Group B must lose. That is zero-sum thinking, and again, many people apply that to the issue of immigration related to undocumented immigrants and African Americans. So, African Americans lose, according to zero-sum thinking, anytime undocumented immigrants gain. And it's not true. The thinking that undocumented immigrants take jobs from blacks is not accurate. It's not based on data. It's not based on the facts. Now, let me show you what I'm saying. PBS News and the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics says the latest U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics current population survey data shows that as of 2023, native-born black workers are most predominantly employed in management and financial operations, sales, and office support roles, while native-born Latino workers are most often employed in management, office support, and service occupations. Foreign-born, non-citizen black workers are most often represented in transportation and healthcare support roles, and foreign-born, non-citizen Hispanic workers are most often represented in construction, building, and grounds cleaning. So, African Americans and Latino Americans, whether native-born or foreign-born, work in different industries. Thus, they are not competing for the same jobs. So when Trump said that they're taking black jobs, and by the way, I'm going to question this whole notion of black jobs here in just a moment. But when he says that, when he phrases it that way, it's based on a false premise. And it's designed, once again, to pit two groups of people against each other. You see, their greatest fear is that non-white people in America unite and form that coalition that they fear, and that many blacks, even many blacks, fight against. So, white supremacists are constantly trying to divide those two communities, especially African Americans and Latino Americans. Okay? Now, I want to play for you a tape of Dr. Claude Anderson, who applies a zero-sum logic to the issue of immigration. Okay, I want to play that for you, so let's go to that video now.
The second thing is that you're going to have an unending influx of immigrants into the country. And that's what Dr. Price is talking about. And nobody, no black politician, no black organization wants to deal with that issue. They will avoid it at all costs, even though in their hearts they know that's one of the biggest problems for black folk. We anticipate in the next 10 to 12 years approximately 8 to 6 million Hispanics coming into the United States and 41 million Asians. You have been the majority minority for 400 years in this country. You have been the number 2 population for 400 years. You're going to get kicked out of being number 2. You're going to go down and become number 4. Now, common sense, even a third grade education would tell you, if you didn't get anything when you were number 2, you all jumped ahead of me, but anyway, you can guess what you're going to get when you become number 4.
Okay, let's look at that. All right, let's look at that. He has a very sort of definite way of looking at the whole immigration issue, and he looks at it through a certain lens. And that's one way to look at it. I look at it differently. Okay? And let me explain to you how I look at it, because I think the way I look at it is the more fact-based, sort of rational way of looking at things. And basically, it is not those immigrants who have come into the country that is our enemy or our enemies. It is white supremacy. White supremacy. And here's why I say that. Dr. Anderson assumes that we're in a fixed space of being on the bottom. Therefore, when the immigrants come in, they are going to compete with us as blacks for that fixed space, which has a fixed amount of resources. In other words, he sort of presumes that we can't break through white supremacy so that we can compete for the whole pie. You see, that's what I'm about, the whole pie. Bringing down the barriers of white supremacy so that we're not fixed, so that we're not relegated to that fixed space that white supremacy wants us to be relegated to. You see. But if we're looking at it like, no, this space of oppression belongs to us. And when non-white groups come in, we got to fight them over this space of limited slices, if you're thinking about it in terms of, say, a pizza or a pie. We got white supremacy has given us this one slice of the pie. And so when someone comes in, we got to fight them over that one slice. And my issue is we need to be fighting the white supremacists over the rest of the pie. We shouldn't allow them to relegate us to one slice of the pie. And the best way to fight them for the rest of the pie is not by competing with immigrants, but by having a coalition with immigrants. Now, I know that has all kinds of issues, but it's still the best course of action. Not to relegate ourselves to, as Trump said, black jobs, but to fight for all that white supremacy has denied us for the last 400 years. So our space, we shouldn't see it as being fixed, okay? We should be fighting for our share of the whole doggone pie, because we did what? We laid the economic foundation for this country. And so we shouldn't let Trump and others relegate us to black jobs. We got to challenge white supremacy. We got to fight it directly. We got to confront it like our ancestors did. They did not fight for us so that we could end up fighting other people for a small slice of the pie. They fought and sacrificed and bled and died for us so that we could get our share of the whole thing. Okay? Now let's go back and finish listening here to Dr. Anderson.
And the worst part about it is as you descend and go down to number 4, those other groups are going to go up. And as they go past you, you're going to have major racial clashes in this country. You're going to have fights all over this country between blacks and Hispanics, blacks and Asians, blacks and poor whites. And black folk cannot fight all these groups.
Okay, now, let's look at what Dr. Anderson does right here. So he says, as blacks go down and these other groups go up, there's going to be major racial conflict. So in his mind, conflict is inevitable, right? It's unavoidable between blacks and non-white groups. All right, so he cannot fathom the possibility of solidarity, of alliance, of shared struggle. He can't see that. He doesn't see coalition against the real enemy, the real source of oppression. It's not, in other words, it's not blacks oppressing non-white Hispanics. It's not blacks oppressing, say, the Indian American, nor is it Hispanics, Latinos oppressing blacks. We have a common enemy that they want us to be fighting so that we don't see who the real enemy is. And so when Trump talks about they're taking your black jobs, and now we see this deportation going on here, well, some Latinos could say, well, they are doing this deportation thing to protect black jobs. Because Trump gave that as the reason for why there needs to be these deportations. But we know that that is not the reason why they're doing the deportation. They're doing that to protect what? White supremacy. That's again why Mr. Fuller said, if you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, what you do understand is going to confuse you. So there does not have to be conflict between African Americans and Latino Americans and other non-white immigrants if we understand who our real enemy is. Because while white supremacy is deporting Latinos, it is at the same time disempowering blacks so that this can be a nation that is controlled by a white minority. Now, I know you perked up when I said white minority. Why am I saying that? Because the experts are saying that this country will be a majority nation in just a decade or so. Couple decades. And they fear that. They fear that. So they got to keep non-white groups fighting each other rather than looking at what is the real enemy. Now, one of the ways that they keep us at odds is they like to inject anti-blackness into the thinking of the Latino community, of the Indian American community, of the Arab community, even the indigenous Africans before they come here. Some of them have told me that even while they're on the continent of Africa, whites there tell them to stay away from, African Americans. You see, that is white supremacy dividing the African American, the Latino American, the Arab American, and other non-white populations. And if you look at this thing internationally, it is non-white people who dominate the population growth and the population currently as it is. So it is in the best interests of whites, of white supremacy, to keep us divided. Because here in America, they greatly fear being a minority in this country. That's what January 6th was all about. You remember Trump kept telling them, you're losing your country, you're losing your country. When Obama got elected and then reelected, that sent them really into a hissy fit trying to figure out how to maintain white power, white dominance, white supremacy. So there doesn't have to be that conflict that Dr. Anderson talks about. If we're all focused on that one slice of the pie, yes, there will be. Because then we're like ants going at one thing. We're like mice going at this one little small piece. What we got to do is break through white supremacy so that we can have a chance at the bigger pot. And the best way to do that is to form coalitions. Again, for our shared struggles. This is a shared struggle. So we need to have this solidarity. No matter what people say, that is the best way to deal with this. We can never become comfortable being at the bottom and then fighting anybody else who comes in this country as if they're going to compete with us about being at the bottom. That makes no sense. We got to push along with other non-white people against white supremacy. One of the things that they do to non-white people here is they dangle a carrot on a stick and say to non-white people that if you carry our white supremacy water, then we may accept you as white. Right? So if you, black people, if you want to be a part of us and prosper and get the bag, then what we need you to do is sell out your community. Right? We need you to sell your community out. We need you to dispense disinformation. We need you to deceive them into voting for us. We need you to get them to think that we're not their enemy. And to the Latino community, they say to them, if you want to get close to whiteness so that you can have some of these rewards, then what we need you to do is to be anti-black. Need you to be anti-black. And to the blacks who are trying to get close to whiteness, we need you to deceive your folks and be anti-immigrant. So you go out there and you tell the immigrants that they're not welcome. You tell other black folks that they too should fight against the undocumented immigrants and other immigrants. You see, that's that divide and conquer. Divide and conquer. That's that divide and conquer agenda that they have. Keep us fighting so that we don't see the real enemy, which is white supremacy. And sadly, a lot of our younger African-American people, men especially, they have bought into it. They bought into this notion that if they, just get close to whiteness, that if they have these anti-immigrant sentiments, if they deceive and disinform, misinform, mislead other blacks, then maybe they can get that bag. Maybe they will open some doors. And let me tell you this, it can be pretty lucrative. Just ask Byron Donalds and Tim Scott and some of the rest. It can be pretty lucrative carrying the water of white supremacy. Are you with me? So we got to see this. We got to reimagine this. There are some voices out here who are saying that there can never be this coalition. Well, I don't know the motive of those folks. I don't know if they're saying that because they're grifters, or if they're saying that because they genuinely are just believe that there cannot be that coalition because of issues between the two. I don't know. But I think it's time to challenge that notion that there must be conflict between us, that we cannot form this coalition I'm talking about, that we got to fight over this one slice of pie that white supremacy has relegated all of us to. No, we need to continue to fight white supremacy. Our ancestors had it right. White supremacy is the enemy, not other oppressed people. White supremacy. Okay? All right. That's what I wanted to share with you. I am Reverend and Civil Rights Attorney Augustus Corbett. Thank you for watching this video, and stay woke.